I've had a break from the loft. I've had a couple of breaks actually. There was, I did come up and do a bit. I did a few hours one day, I think a good month before Christmas, but I haven't been up since. I hadn't been up since, and then got the bug again, so I've been up, and the focus is laying track. I've really tried to force myself to enjoy it, but still haven't enjoyed it. But I'm plugging away at it, and I just find, I think as I've said before, I find every aspect of it hard. I find getting the stuff down, getting the screws in hard. I find curving the track. I find fishplates hard. But I've had my head down, and I'm sort of plugging away. These are the, I guess if I go back to the start, the incline is the bit at the end. There are 3 lines on the upper deck. The outside one is kind of an access line, like a full passing loop almost. That means that anti-clockwise lines, which would be on the inside, anti-clockwise trains, which would be on the inside, can sort of get to the outside and get down the incline without going over the clockwise track, which is the one in the middle. So the 3 tracks come around. They then split into 4 here because I've really simplified the station. If I come down here, this is where the station's going to be, and it really is now just going to be 2 platforms down the outside and 2 through lines down the middle. So the inside anti-clockwise line had to sort of split out on the approach to the station, so that there was this outside line for the station, and then the station, kind of with a possibly scenic stuff down here, spreads out, and the main part of it are where the baseboard widens down there. I think with this channel and with these videos, what I really try and do and stick to only is just recording what I'm doing. And I wasn't going to record any of this track laying because I find it difficult, because I'm not very good at it. And so, you know, you want, I think, videos on YouTube that are by people with skills and experience, and who can actually do it well. But in the end, I thought I might as well, because this is very likely going to be the last layout I ever make, whether I, you know, have it for 70 years or whether I move out and knock it all down. I don't think I'll do this again. So I thought in the end I might as well just record what I'm doing, because that's what the channel's about, just documenting what I'm doing. So there is some stuff in this video about laying track and soldering droppers and laying straight track, and just trying to describe the ways I've found of doing things that make it less likely that I'll mess up. But it really is just, I don't want it to be presented as some kind of how-to, because there are such good videos out there that I've watched and studied to at least have a chance of doing this. But this is purely just what I've done. I realised in this corner I had the potential to go wrong, because these are kind of freestyling, these tracks that come around the curve. I curved the outer one myself, and so it's supposed to straighten up, and then you've got a station here that goes all the way down there. Platforms on each end, one here, one here. What I realised was I can go to the effort of straightening this track. It comes around the curve and then it needs to go straight, it needs to dart all the way down there. And I can straighten it, but being straight isn't enough. It also needs to be parallel to the board, because if it comes round and I curve it too much, it could be straight as a die going all the way down there, but end up at the bottle of IPA instead of being, you know, parallel to the board. So I think I used this trick with the old one as well. What I did, I got my tape measure, and then just as at the point when I think, right, the track's straight now, just butted it up to the track, to the sleepers, and locked it where the back of the tape measure touches the baseboard. And then I know that's what my measurement is. So every time I've laid a piece of track after that, I've just done exactly the same, and I've measured it all the way down to there. And there's going to be kind of a crossover set of points there, so there's no point going further. But what that means now, as I lay these parallel tracks, I can use this track as a guide, because it's now fastened down, and I know it runs straight, and I know it runs parallel to the edge of the board. So I can, I can just use my spacers to make sure that this one runs parallel to that one, and then the same with the other 3, and I know I've got straight track. Never hurts to check visually as well, and actually a camera's good at this. It really picks up any deviations, I guess. So once I'd done it, a quick check down here. I think I can't go for perfection. I'm not good enough at this to go for perfection, but as long as it looks pretty straight, then I'll go with it. So grabbing the next piece of track from the last few pieces I've got left before the next lot arrives. First thing I'm going to do, because this is going to be on a straight down there, I'm going to just run this track setter thing through the track, and I'll keep doing this. I'll do it before I solder, I'll do it after I solder the droppers on, and then do it once it's actually laid as well, just to keep it as absolutely straight as I possibly can. Also, this flexi-track comes with these, it kind of has sleepers going right to the end. I'm going to do this because I'm right-handed, I'm going to do it at this end, which stops the fish plates joining on. So I think there are ways of kind of hacking at the little chairs that hold these sleepers on, to kind of create space for the fish plate to go on without actually removing these, but I don't have the eyesight for that, so I'm just going for the old-fashioned. My dropper's just fallen off. Typically I just heard it hit the floor, so that's going to take a resoldering. I'm glad it happened now. But anyway, I'm gonna just cut these two off. Obviously keep the sleeper because it can go on again later. Turn it round, just because I'm right-handed, so it's easy to do it this way. And again, another one here and there. All of these sleepers that are getting cut off, I'm just keeping over here in the corner so I can file the chairs off and slide them into the gaps. I haven't done that too much on the lower deck. There's a good example just there, just because it's not really going to be all that visible. I might go around at some point and fill them in, but the important thing is the upper deck that's going to be visible, so that's all getting saved, ready to be slid in later. I now have my resoldered bit of track. It's got a bit bent. It wasn't the best soldering job, but again, I just got to hope I can hide it with scenery. I guess it'll be good motivation to do all of the scenery stuff. It's gone a bit bent through the soldering process, so I'm just going to try and straighten it up again. I'll go through it again once it's in, but this at least gives it a start point. There are a few kind of little tools around like this one. This is the only one I've found really useful. There's my little fish plates. This is a straight, a Hornby straight. I had a box full of them and I wanted to use them up just because, well, I don't want to waste anything really. So coming off the corners, I've kind of got these straight pieces of track on. So I just need to make sure, I think the piece above is fastened down, and it's just worth checking that we're all straight there. So I know it roughly wants to be there. So there's one fish plate on this already, so I'm gonna try left-handed, which is never a good idea, to put this fish plate on here. So these blocks, I do find that useful because I do struggle with fish plates. So now I need to connect this up. That felt good. No, top one's not in. There we go there. Nicely in now, so let's give this another run. Through, there we go. And I guess the most important bit to start with is around the droppers, because I'm gonna have to drill them through. So where's my pencil? There it is. Just gonna mark the droppers. Sometimes naturally want to gravitate downwards, so I'm gonna try and mark just under where that's happening to give myself the best chance of a kind of, I don't know, natural drop. feed my droppers through, and this leaning over, this is where the bad back starts. So I start hurrying because I just want to be able to straighten up. Did I mention that I'm not keen on laying track? Right. Get my hand under easily enough, so pull this through, try not to kink it. But it's some of the way down, but I want to make sure as much as I can that it's still spaced correctly, so just gently pull it down with the spacer on. Well, it's gone well, I think, because the droppers can sort of pull the track in a direction other than where I want it to go. Again, have a run through to keep it straight, and then start with the fastening the thing down, I guess. I think the end of this straight piece needs to be fastened down. This one is fastened down, and just make sure that I've got the spacing that I need. But I'll start with the easy one. Where's my screwdriver? These screws, I think I got them off eBay. They are sold as track laying screws, but I think they're actually something to do with jewellery. Alan Thompson, someone like that, sells them. They're good, and they go through the holes, but I find that the threads on the top of them are incredibly weak, so you really have to be properly lined up. The slightest push when the screw doesn't want to go in, and the thread just breaks, and you end up having to pull them out with pliers. So this Pico track doesn't have any, I'm working my own shadow here, isn't great, doesn't have any pre-drilled holes, and because those screws are a little bit weak, as well as going through the sleeper, I had to go through a bit of plywood as well, just to give the screw a chance of going in without struggling too much. I can see I usually have a light on my head for precisely that reason, because as soon as I start working close to it, I get my own light from the ambient light and just cast a shadow over everything and can't see. That's gone in nicely, so I just want to keep spacing along here, get a screw in where that is, a few more, and then on to the next. I'm not putting droppers on every piece of track. These that I've just laid have got some on them, but I'm tending, really, I mean, each block will probably only have, once it's split, I am preparing for blocks. I've got insulating rail joiners on one of the rails, because I'm going to go for those slightly more reliable block detectors from Merg. So only one rail is getting a insulating rail joiner on it, because those particular block detectors only detect on one rail, so there's no point making life hard for myself. But generally, the way I've ended up doing it on the lower deck is each block will just have one set of droppers connected to the block detector, but more than one rail will have droppers on it, just in case some fail. But not every rail, usually every other rail or something like that, if I'm going with the long stuff. So something I'm doing, because not every single rail has a dropper on it, and once it's all connected and fastened down, I'm just using a continuity, I'm supposed to be, but I think I haven't pressed the wrong button. At least I hope I've pressed the wrong button. A continuity tester, there we go, on across each of the fish plates, just to make sure that there is connectivity between every rail. Just with me being aware that I'm absolutely capable of going absolutely wrong at any point with anything. And I really, because I don't particularly enjoy this, and I've tried to force myself to enjoy it, it's not working. One of the worst things is having to go back, pull it all back up again, because I realise there's a mistake way before. So I'm really checking as much as I can before I fasten it down. And one area where I think I'm capable of going wrong as well is there's a join here between two pieces of track, and sometimes I can end up with a wonky join, so I'm just sitting the straight track setter across the join as I screw them down, and then it makes sure, you know, I've got the right distance, the right spacing on each side as well. Something I didn't mention as well is before I screw it down, I'm just pulling the rails apart slightly so there's a little bit of room to grow when it gets hot in the summer. Similarly, when laying the set track, I've got a spacer. This is the fixed track that's fixed and spaced to this one, which was spaced to the end of the board. So there's my join, space before the join, space after the join, and a track setter through the join, which hopefully just about limits my potential to make mistakes to almost nothing. I certainly wasn't going to make any videos on soldering because I'm one of the worst solderers in the world. At least I thought I was. And I then discovered something I'd been on, I think an assumption I'd made that was completely wrong assumption. And when I kind of addressed that and started doing things differently, the soldering became a lot easier. So just in case anyone else has made that assumption, I did film myself doing some shaky soldering as well. I've got my piece of track then, and I'm going to have to make some room underneath to put the droppers on. So I'm going to just, with my very blunt blade, cut these bits of plastic off, and they really don't seem to, maybe it's because of my blade, cut cleanly. There's one. Oh, the other one's off. And that still doesn't leave much of a gap, so I'm just going to try and squash. Yeah, that's probably enough. I don't want to move them too far because I tend to struggle to get them back again. That'll do. I've got my track prepared then. I've just cut a couple of cut one of the little joiners off between two of the sleepers, pulled them apart slightly just to reduce the risk of me melting things, although it still does happen occasionally. So the problem I always had, and it was the reason why I stopped doing this, why I haven't done it for a few months, because it's especially with this track for some reason, couldn't get the solder to stick to the track. It might be the solder I'm using, I tend to not really know what I'm buying, but I've never fully understood the concept of flux and kind of there was so many things to get my head around with soldering. Flux was just something else. So I always felt like, well, if I buy solder that says it's got flux in it, then flux is just one thing I don't need to worry about. But I was absolutely wrong, because regardless of whether the solder says it's got flux in it or not, flux helps massively. Flux is like a solder magnet, and it makes it, for me, much more likely that the solder will actually stick to the thing it's supposed to be sticking to. So I went onto Amazon and I ordered some flux, and this came back, and it works, it's brilliant, but the problem I had with it is it's solid, and I was really struggling to get little, tiny little bits out of there and then balance them on the rail in order for them to be present when the solder came along. So I soon, although I could see the effectiveness of it, it just added more frustration and fiddly bits. So I then discovered that you can get liquid flux, which I then bought, and this bottle even comes with a lovely little brush. So now all I do is just dab some flux onto the rails. And while I've been rabbiting on, my soldering iron should have heated up, so I'm gonna grab it. And also I find I've got to give myself the best chance really of success, and for me, I'm right-handed, and my naturally the angle I'm coming in from is this. So if the track was around the other way horizontally, I'm always kind of coming in at an angle with this hand, and it makes it more shaky because the muscles are more strained. So I really try to work with it vertically, just because it gives me a bit more of a chance. It looks like oh, there we go. It gives me a bit more of a chance of coming in at a natural angle and being a bit less shaky. So straight away it feels like that solder is much more willing to just sit where I want it on the rail. So now I need some droppers, and I'm gonna go, I'm not too bothered about the length really. Have I got pliers somewhere? Oh, my pliers, hang on a second. Pliers are on the other workbench. So not too bothered about the length of the droppers, because I can't really anticipate when everything's finished they're going to be in relation to the current detector that they want to connect to. So I'm not averse at all to just sticking a chock block on the end of them underneath the board and then putting the wire that I need. So I'll put in the extra wire that I need. So quick flick with that to expose the wire, and same process for this really. Let's see if I can get this turned around. Wire in there, little bit of flux. On a focus, I want the very end of the wire to sit nicely on the rail, so that's the bit I'm going to try and make sure attracts a decent amount of solder. That is a very satisfying crackle. I don't know if the microphone picked that up. And now the difficult bit. So get it all wet, get it all hot, and just hope that blob sticks. Looks okay so far. Oh, it's sliding. No, it's not sliding. That's me pulling the sleepers. So at this point, turn it around, because again, I'm make it easier, as easy for myself as it possibly can be. And easy for me is coming in with the wire with the left hand and the soldering iron with the right. So just stick to that pattern and hope it sticks to muscle memory. So grab a wire. I think I did expose the end of it. Stick it in there, get my magic portion again. Listen for the satisfying crackle. There it is. I don't worry too much about getting a huge amount on here if there's a big blob sat waiting for it down there. So again, just try and get into a position where I'm comfortable. Both of them, the solder on the rail, solder on the wire, touching the iron, and then let go. It's got a bit of a spear. I have to check for spears because I do get them every now and again, and obviously if they're coming lower than the level of the sleepers, then the track's not going to sit flush, so that might need a little file. If I take the is that a little wobble? That's a good one. If I take the iron to them again, it will pull the spear off, but it also it's melting the solder again, so I've got a risk of it all falling off. And if I've got two decent connections like I seem to have, I don't want to take that risk. And then just push the sleepers up a little bit so that it's as hidden as it can be. They're sticking over a tiny little bit. I don't know if the camera's picking that up over the end of the rail, but that would get hidden with ballast, I think. So I'm happy enough with that. That's about it for now then. I think I've got kind of stopped here because I've got a crossover. I want to put a crossover in here. The idea is there'll be a platform coming down the far side, one on the near side as well, but platform coming down the far side. Trains on the anti-clockwise line can use the crossover to cross from the anti-clockwise main line straight across the clockwise main line and onto that access line, with still enough platform there for them to stop there if they want, or just head straight down the hill. I've bought long points, but I'm a bit concerned about platform rub with the trains coming across and over there. I mean, with long points, I guess I've given myself the best chance possible. But what I've done is, the reason why I've moved the crossover all the way down here is, if there is platform rub, then I can just stop the platform there, and there's still enough space running all the way down there for a long enough platform. But then if there isn't, then I can kind of do something fancy. Well, not fancy, but I've kind of got the option to have a sort of 2-stage platform with a shorter train on here and all that stuff. So I'm waiting for points to arrive for that, and a bit more track as well, because I've run out of track. So I'll stop it here. I've still got 2 curves to do, the one there and the one over there, and there'll be another crossover there in the opposite direction of the one here. The idea of that being, well, yeah, the opposite. The bay platform will be down here, so an opportunity for a small train to come out of the bay platform and again get right across onto the access line and out of the way, without disturbing the main lines too much. So I'll be going again hopefully once all that track arrives.